Hello and welcome back to another edition of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm your host, Stephen Edwards. Now, as I've said from the beginning of this series, one of the main points of all this is to find certainty and meaning from all this chaos and mayhem that's all around us, right? In every area of our lives right now. You just can't ignore it, right? It's just happening everywhere, in everything all at once. And we've been using as the centerpiece of our discussions the situation that is happening in the Middle East right now, because it's hard to not think about it, right? And what we said is, look, these principles, if we're going to find certainty and meaning in all the chaos and mayhem, then we may as well work on and focus on the most difficult situation in our lives, or one of them, right? Because if it doesn't work there, it doesn't make any sense and it's not going to work. So what we've been saying is that Hamas and Israel are pawns in a bigger game of chess. And the countries involved go way beyond Hamas, Gaza, Israel, Palestine. We've got all kinds of countries involved here in the background, right? We've got Iraq and Iran and the Saudi Arabia and you name it, Syria, Jordan. All these countries in some way, shape or form are having influence on this situation. Then it goes beyond that into Russia, China, and other countries as well. And so we've got to see this from a bigger picture and recognize that the level of consciousness that has created all this is not sufficient to take us beyond it and to find a solution, right? So one of the things that I've been looking at recently is the Shaolin monks. Now, I'm a martial artist myself, and so these guys are martial artists. And martial means, usually military, but it's also about discipline and focus, strength, confidence. And the Shaolin teachings are based on Buddhism and Taoism, right? So Buddhism are the principles of, compassion and kindness, but it's kind of like a religion. And Taoism is more in the flow and is about nature. So it's both. And so it's about finding physical strength in a physical world and having spiritual strength in the physical world as well. It's a balance. And of course, the Taoism is the yin and the yang, the night and the day, the man and the woman, right? Night and day. The balance of these things, which is why it's depicted as the black and white circle, where they're both interrelated together. And then we've got the I Ching, okay, which is another philosophy and another incredibly enlightened path to help us understand our nature, the nature of things, and where we're from and where we're going. So in the Shaolin monasteries, the teachings are profound. And they teach etiquette, how to be a man in the world, how to treat a woman, how to do all these things in a way that is respectful of ourselves and each other. And they also say that discipline is our destiny, how disciplined we are in our lives. And they teach these philosophies, but they also mold the physical body into a very strong warrior machine. Not so that you can go out and fight the world, but so you don't need to. But if you need to, you can. And you call upon those skills. Now, I'm also a martial artist. I studied Taekwondo under a 9th degree black belt. You know anything about martial arts? A 9th degree black belt is pretty rare, because between every belt that you test for, you have to wait the number of years. So in other words, between 1st degree and 2nd degree, you got to wait 2 years. Between 8th degree and 9th degree, that's 9 years. So he was 180. I'm kidding. It wasn't 180. He started to practice martial arts, Taekwondo, when he was a young boy in Korea. And he came over to the United States and he founded the American Taekwondo Union. Anyway, he'd been doing it a little while. So as we would be training in the dojang, he would come around as we were training and doing our sparring or kicking and punching or our forms. And he would slap his key and he would say, "Discipline! Discipline is path to freedom." That's about my best Korean accent. Anyway, the point is, I was confused because I'm from England in the UK. Growing up, discipline is something you got if you did something wrong, or so I heard. Anyway, so I was confused. And if you were disciplined in school, you went to the headmaster, and the headmaster would inflict some kind of martial punishment, the cane, right? So I'm told. Anyway, so I went to see Young Ho John in his office. I knocked on his door, and he said, "Yes, Grasshopper." No, he didn't say that. He said, "Yes, Stephen." I said, "Well, Young Ho John, you say that, discipline is the path to freedom. I'm not sure I understand what that means." And he said something very profound, and I've never forgotten it. He said, "Well, the more disciplined you are in the daily practice of the art, the more the art becomes an extension of you, and then you're free." And I thought, wow, that's profound, because we could say that about anything, right? If the more disciplined you are with money and finances, and the more you study it, the freer you become. The more disciplined you are in the way you behave in your relationships and in your life, the better your life is going to be. And so discipline is the path to freedom, and it is your destiny. And I remember the physical side of it and the training, and every few months we would train for 3 days in a row. One night we would stay up all night and we would train, and then we would go for a run in the morning. And I remember my instructor was a 4th degree black belt. His name was Mr. Eric Diaz, and he was the head of the SWAT team for the Tampa Bay Police Department. Tough guy. Anyway, we would go for a run, and he would run in his bare feet. And I wondered why he did. Was he showing off? No, because when he ran in his bare feet, what happened to his bones? They became so strong. And when you learn these martial arts, if you just use the bones of your body, they can become incredibly powerful, and they can break other people's bones, become another way to be a warrior, right? But it builds strength in the physical body. And the Shaolin monks are extremely strong, extremely powerful physically, but also they have an inner peace, the spiritual side as well, the yin and the yang, right? So my point is this: we live in a physical world. We need to have the skills to live confidently in the physical world. We need to be able to protect ourselves, protect our families in the physical world. But we also need to know and have the confidence that we don't need to. And that's not something we really want to do. So for example, when I was training, and I went to the dojang one day, and there was one of the students who was standing in the hallway, and there was a crowd around him, and he was telling them about what had happened to him the night before. That he'd gone to a 7-Eleven, and this big guy who was obviously the leader of a gang, came over to him and said, "Hey, that's my space, you can't park there." And it was the only space available. And so he tried to reason with the guy, and the guy wasn't having it. "No, you got to move it." Anyway, make a long story longer, he ended up trying to walk into the store, and the guy stood in front of him. So he jumped up in the air, and he did a back kick, and he kicked him in the chest and broke 2 of his ribs and put him in hospital. And everybody was like, "Wow, man, that's amazing." And as he was talking, Master Young Ho Jun heard him, and he came over, and he said, "You were wrong." And he said, "I was wrong. I was just parking my car." He said, "You were wrong because you could have gone to another 7-Eleven, and that young man would not be in hospital right now. He didn't know how to fight the way you did. He wasn't trained. He does not have lethal weapons like you do. You could have gone to another 7-Eleven. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful, right? That's another way of looking at things. And so Buckminster Fuller says, look, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's what we're talking about here. I want you to understand something. When we're talking about living from the heart and intuition, that is not weak. That is powerful, and it is strong. And if we don't live from strength and we keep allowing weak people that want to get us into wars and fighting and destruction and atrocities, we become weak too. And we have to be stronger. We have to show them the way that living from the heart is not weakness, it is strength. And to be who we really are in the face of those who will tear us down is not weak. It is the ultimate dare. To be who we really are in the presence of others. So I challenge you to begin looking into this and how you can do that too. And I look forward to sharing even more with you in the next episode. Until then, sap et ord. Dare to be wise.